Hi and very welcome to the final conference of the Nordic Connections. Has there ever been a greater need for sustainable solutions, for innovation, or for collaboration, cross-border, or cross-organizations, or cross-regions? I don't think so. And that's why this conference and this project, Nordic Connections, is so important. With its 21 clusters from 7 countries are creating and stimulating innovation in the sustainability area when it comes to energy. And already we've had 7 living labs or events with no less than 750 participants from all over Europe. And we've already seen 20 new international collaborations. Today, I'm very happy to welcome a lot of people from all over Europe and also from North America to listen in to the final conference. We have a very intensive program here in the studio in Gothenburg, where I am. We will have guests and speakers who will talk about everything from energy costs to if the new EU call for Green Deal could make a difference. And of course, we learn much more about the Nordic Connection project and the living labs. That is really the core, the heart of this project. So, very welcome to this conference. You will be active also. It's not only here. We will have questions for you, the audience. We will also have guests that are with us on link to the project, to the program here today. So, once again, very welcome. The questions that will come up, you will see them on your screen. It's just answer when I ask you to, and we'll see what you think about different themes. There's also chat, so if you want to network with colleagues that you see are participating, or new colleagues, or new possible friends or contacts, you can also use the chat. And of course, also you can use the hashtag that you have already seen and will see during the conference. My name is Åsa Lindell and I'm happy to be your moderator here today. The first question, we have a first question for you, and that is very much linked to the fact that we are in Gothenburg. Some of us are in Gothenburg, most of you are not. But we would like to know what you think is the best thing with Gothenburg. And just answer the question and we'll see what you think is a good thing with Gothenburg. Could it be the innovation? Or could it be something else? Well, right now it's the surroundings and nature that is on top. Nobody has not been here, I suppose, because the last thing was still to find out. That is a good sign. So we have a lot of people thinking that innovation, the innovation culture is a really good thing with Gothenburg. And the second thing is that nature and, of course, the sense of humor of the Gothenburg people. That is funny. We can talk about that another time, I think. Thank you very much so far. And now I'm very happy to welcome our welcome speaker, Anneli Redén, the Lord Mayor, City of Gothenburg.
Thank you, Åsa. If you were here, I would start with welcome to Gothenburg, the best coast of Sweden and the best coast in the world, probably. But you are not here, and I hope that you and your family are well in these difficult times and that you will stay healthy. So, welcome to the Innovation Power through Transnational Cooperation. Today's program is not only interesting, it's also important for the future. Energy consumptions is something that will always be a part of our society. And the sustainability of these ever-present consumptions is a key to society at large. The world needs to gather our resources, and the research community has been a driver in working for the globe and not just only for a nation. Research collaborations must thus encourage innovation stemming from research supporters as well as the utilization process to make the transfer better. The topics of this conference reflects many of those important aspects, and it gives me great pleasure to see such an important event being hosted in Gothenburg. The solution to manage this as an online event is a good example for the urgency, but also the innovative spirit that we want to encourage and support. I hope that you find more collaboration and that we will see you in Gothenburg soon. Thank you. Oops, up. Now you see this change is for...
Can I help you?
Yeah, it's for men, not for a little lady. So, sorry about that.
Thank you, Anneli. Of course, I have to ask you the same question as the audience got.
Of course.
What do you think is the best thing with Gothenburg?
Well, the best thing for me is the closeness to water, our wonderful coast, the canals that runs through the city center and all the lakes around Gothenburg, and of course the closeness to nature.
What is your favorite spot?
It's a secret, no.
We won't talk about that.
No, it's the coast.
It's the coast.
Yes.
When it comes to the theme of today, sustainability, what are you specifically proud of when it comes to Gothenburg there?
Well, one of the city of Gothenburg's goal is, of course, sustainability. And I have just writing down something, because our work for sustainability has lately been recognized. Last year I went to Helsingfors and we won the prize for the European Capital of Smart Tourism and the prize for sustainability. So that was very fun and very interesting. And of course the Gothenburg is the world's most sustainable destination according to the Global Destination Sustainability Index in 2016, 2017, 2018 and 2019.
Wow.
We are humbled, but of course we are proud.
And let's see what happens 2020.
Yes.
Yes. There, of course, you have a lot of things to be proud of. I can realize that. I thank you very much for coming here and opening this important conference. Thank you very much, Anneli Rödin.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Things are happening not only in the studio and on the link that we will have speakers from. There's also been a political meeting this morning with politicians from not less than 6 countries. 6 countries that have discussed what can a project like this mean and how can you build on that for the future of political cooperation on the European and on a regional level. With that said, I'm very happy to welcome our next speaker. She's the director of Cluster and Innovation at Business Region Gothenburg. She's also one of the initiators for this conference or this project. So I'm very, very happy to introduce someone that is convinced that the word cross is really, really important in terms of cross-cooperation between clusters, between companies and other stakeholders. Please welcome Maria Strömberg.
Thank you, Åsa. Wow, finally, it is the day. It's the day for the final conference of Northern Connection, and I'm so happy to hear that we also have participants from all over Europe and even United States. So that's fantastic, I think. And the message hopefully will inspire a lot of actors to go for action, because that's what the conference is about. It's a call to action. It is urgent to make the CO2 emissions drop. And many industries and companies are striving hard for contributing and developing new, smart and sustainable solutions. But there are also sectors where there's still a lot to do, such as within transport sector, energy production and city development. That is why at this conference you will listen to examples on how we have tackled those areas in the Northern Connection Partnership. In many cities around the world, emissions drop mainly because the number of inhabitants are increasing. In other words, we have more people sharing the same volume of CO2 emissions or contributing to the same volume. And therefore it looks better per capita sometimes, but not if we look at the total volume of CO2 emissions produced. There we need to go for action. And we need to do that cross-border and with cross-collaboration. In most cases, we know about the solutions, and the innovations are already here in most cases. But maybe they are not known in a wider context outside their own home countries. So we need to scale those innovations up together and do it more quickly. Therefore, cities and regions have great responsibility to enable conditions for the companies and innovators to partner with others to develop solutions in a larger context in order to find sustainable solutions to our common challenges. Cities and regions also have the possibility to drive the scale up by cooperating cross borders in order to create bigger markets and business-driven development that can speed up the CO2 drop of emissions and create new jobs at the same time. That is what Northern Connection partnership and project has been all about. So hopefully you will find that this conference will tell you how we did it within the Northern Connection partnership and hopefully inspire you all to continue that development. It is time to act, and we better do it together in order to become successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. And Maria will come back at the concluding session of this conference when she will report and comment on what happened in the political meeting that took place this morning. Now I have another question for you. And this question has to do with, of course, the theme of this conference. What is the most significant benefit from innovation, collaboration, cross projects like Northern Connections? So please tell us what you think about that. Can it be that they speed up innovation, or the learning or synergies between different stakeholders that are taking part in a project, or perhaps the hands-on approach with all these different living labs? So we'll see what's happening now. We have they speed up innovation is one important answer from you. And we have also the learning and synergies between different projects and different stakeholders in the projects. And we also have some hands-on approach. And you will listen more to what this hands-on approach means when we will listen to the 3 examples of living labs that will be presented here today. So most of you say that it is the learning and synergies between the stakeholders. And I really, really want to stress how important that is. When you open up to other stakeholders, to other organizations, perhaps with a different mindset from the beginning or a different knowledge, things can really happen. And I think that is really, really success factor when it comes to innovation. So thank you very much for your answers. About 25 years ago, I met Thomas Kåberger. I was then environmental manager for the global logistics company Schenker. And he was the chairman of the Gothenburg chapter of Swedish Society for Nature Conservation. And I still can remember the vivid discussions we had about sustainability, which then was called environment, and how important it was for different actors, such as the industry, to really, really take action and collaborate. Since he had a lot of numbers of positions in Sweden, abroad, in a lot of different countries and organizations, and he's still a very well respected voice and source of knowledge when it comes to energy. He's today the affiliate professor for industrial energy policy at Chalmers University. He's also at industrial growth executive at InnoEnergy. He's a board member of Vattenfall and is also the chairman of the Renewable Energy Institute in Tokyo. Today, Thomas, in a film that we made for you some time ago, he will tell you about the cost transition in the energy sources. What happens when renewable sources like wind and solar energy go down, the costs go down so much, so they start to outcompete the traditional sources. That is really, really exciting to listen to. So we'll see a short film, and then there's also a short interview when I talk to him and ask him a number of questions.
So, as we just heard, my name is Thomas Kåberger. I'm going to describe the dramatic energy transition that those of us who are into innovative companies enjoy. But for most of the established energy companies, this is a drama. The reason why the energy system development is very fast at the moment is that cost relationships have shifted. This has been predicted for quite some time. This diagram is from a publication from the year 2000 published by the OECD, and the author argued that if you just subsidized some of the young technologies, especially solar and wind, for a few years, their costs would come down to the extent that they would be able to outcompete existing energy technologies. The learning is described as learning curves because when you draw a diagram of the cost for different technologies on the y-axis and on the horizontal axis you have the amount of electricity produced or whatever produced by the technology, you will usually get a curve. In this diagram you see that instead it appears as straight lines, and that is because the diagram has been using logarithmic scales. And the great advantage with straight lines is that you can almost not avoid extrapolating the straight lines. And in this case, that was the basis for the argument. These straight lines that you see in the diagram, he said, would continue as straight lines. So if you just produced more electricity with these technologies, cost would come down and outcompete traditional electricity generating technologies. What has happened since is that indeed the solar and wind development has been ongoing and the experience have been accumulated. This diagram showing the wind power installations globally, in fact, grew faster in the first 10 years of this decade than anyone predicted in the 20th century. And the reason that it grew so fast and faster than anyone expected, you can see in this diagram. Nobody, at least not in Europe or North America, expected that China would go from having virtually zero wind power installed capacity in the year 2005 to be by far number one only 5 years later. In China, they have now built more than 2 wind power plants per hour, day and night throughout the year for the last 10 years. We see also the US is number 2, Germany is number 3, and India is coming up as number 4. Some of you might be frustrated that Denmark is not on the curve because Denmark has more wind power than anyone else per inhabitant, but Denmark is a small country, and here it's the total installed capacity, not installed capacity per capita. Solar capacity has grown remarkably fast also, but there were people who were very optimistic about global solar installations already in the 20th century. So I can't claim that no one has been able to predict the fast growth. Indeed, people have been able to predict fast growth in solar, and predictions now say that solar will continue to grow at least as fast as this. Here too, China is now number 1 in the world. Whilst the early construction of solar was done in the US, then in Japan, then in Germany for a few years, as you can see in this diagram. For the last few years, China has been number 1 in producing solar photovoltaic cells, producing panels, but also installing. So China now by far has more solar PV installed capacity than anyone else. There is hard competition after China between the United States and Japan. It seems the US is ahead now. Germany, Italy and India are coming below them. The reason installations are now ongoing at a high rate is that costs have come down. Just as predicted, with increased installations, increased experience, costs have come down. And this has happened very fast in the last 4 years. In 2016, we saw the first really path-breaking result when Morocco did procurement of electricity from new installations, and winning bids came from wind power with prices between $25 and $30 per megawatt hour. This at the time was considered extremely low, but just a couple of years later in 2017, what still may be the world record in cheap wind power was achieved in Mexico, where Italian Enel committed to produce electricity at a price of $17.7 per megawatt hour. This already made wind onshore the cheapest source of electricity. But some people may claim that onshore wind power has limited capacity, and instead offshore is where wind power has the largest potential. Indeed, it's large, but for a long time it was also considered to be very expensive. In 2016, we saw a rapid development. The first record low price was in the summer, June, July of 2016, where Danish Dong managed to win a competition off the Dutch North Sea coast, where they offered to produce wind power at 73 euros per megawatt hour. Then nothing happened in August, but in September, a new record was achieved when Vattenfall won a competition off the Danish west coast, offering to produce offshore wind power at only 60 euros per megawatt hour. After that, nothing happened in October, but in November, we had another record low price where again Vattenfall won a Danish procurement of this time of the Danish east coast at a price below 50 euros per megawatt hour. So the prices offered for offshore wind power decreased by 10 euros per megawatt hour every second month, or 5 euros per megawatt hour and month. Again, a linear development. If you extrapolate this linear development, you would have had free offshore wind power by the summer of 2017. In this case, though, you should not extrapolate the linear curve. You did not get free wind power by 2017. Instead, what we saw in the spring of 2017 was the first unsubsidized wind power investment decision being taken. In an auction off the German coast, Energie Baden-Württemberg as well as Dong offered to use these areas, produce electricity, and do so without any guaranteed price or subsidy. What does occur in these instances is, however, that the infrastructure and the permission process is guaranteed by the procuring country. Again, you saw zero subsidy wind power offered in 2018 by Vattenfall off the Dutch coast. So even offshore wind power is now possible to build, outcompeting existing electricity generators on the spot markets. The cost development for solar was also dramatic in 2016. In February, the global tremendously low 4.8 cents per kilowatt hour was achieved in Peru. Many said this was just going to happen once in a long time, nothing better would happen. But just a couple of months later, in Dubai, a contract was offered at 2.99 US cent per kilowatt hour. A little later in Abu Dhabi, about 2.5 cents. Slightly later in Mexico, again, this time below $20 per megawatt hour, or 2 cents per kilowatt hour, $19.18 per megawatt hour. In Brazil, 17.5, and in 1919, we're down at below 15 euros per megawatt hour, or 1.5 euro cent per kilowatt hour. And similar prices in Dubai, now in dollar this time, 1.7, and lately $1.56 cent per kilowatt hour in Qatar. And then now recently in 2020, in April, a price of 1.35 US cent per kilowatt hour. These prices are much lower than any fossil fueled electricity generator or nuclear power plant can achieve. It's not just a little, it's a factor of 2, 3, 4, or 5 below what new fossil fuel or nuclear capacity would cost. The solar prices that I described were from the sunniest parts of the world. And for us in Northern Europe, this may seem a threat because cheap electricity in these sunny part of the world will outcompete our energy suppliers and our industry. But it's not much worse. We have roughly half the solar installations. The cost here should be roughly twice. And if we see the development in Europe since 2016, that fits very well with the development. In 2016, you had a Danish-German auction that resulted in a price of about 5 euro cents per kilowatt hour. It fell to 4.9, 4.3, and 3.8. And since a couple of years, since February 2019, we see examples also of unsubsidized solar electricity being offered in Denmark, Germany, and also Britain. Summarizing these data, where I just showed the most remarkably cheap contracts being signed, is done by organizations like Bloomberg and Lazard and other international information agencies. Lazard's curves over the years for the United States have been particularly impressive, and we see here how solar and wind have gone from being the most expensive to being the cheapest. And not only are solar and wind decreasing in cost, coal and nuclear is also becoming more expensive. And in their last reports, they've even showing that solar and wind total cost for new plants may be below the operating cost of existing fossil and nuclear power plants in North America. And the same is roughly true in Europe. On the global scale, the result of this is that the renewable electricity generation has increased more than fossil fuels for many of the last few years. There was an exception in 2018 where fossil fuel-based electricity generation increased slightly more than renewables. But on the other hand, last year in 2019, and this was before the virus crisis, already in 2019, fossil fueled electricity generation globally actually decreased, while renewables increased a lot and nuclear increased a little. As these prices have come down, they have not only outcompeted fossil fuels in the sense that you can no longer earn money by building new fossil fuel plants and produce electricity in competition with renewables. It's even said with current fossil fuel prices, in particular oil, at around $40–45 per barrel, the cost of the energy content of crude oil is now above the cost of producing new renewable electricity. This, of course, has the result that electricity can outcompete fossil fuels in other sectors than electricity generation. And we see this in the transport sector, where we have electric cars increasing their market shares, electric buses, for example, in China, where Shenzhen has now an entire bus fleet of around 20,000 buses, all electric. We have electric ferries being developed in Norway. We have an electric cargo ship in China, which, on the other hand, is used to transport coal. But we also have electric aviation. I sometimes said that would never be possible, but it is now very possible. We have Airbus, the established company, offering trainer aircrafts, totally battery electric, and we now have even 9-seated aircrafts being totally battery electric. So at least short-haul electric aviation will occur in the coming years. As a result, batteries have become cheaper. And again, it's a matter of learning curves. We see here a learning curve where the cost of batteries is projected to develop along a timeline. And then we can look at how the real development has gone. And again, as so often in this kind of industrial development, real performance has exceeded the expectations and predictions made earlier. So what we're in for is a dramatic transition or dramatic shift in energy, where non-fossil electricity will start outcompeting fossils in the electricity sector, but also where non-fossil electricity will outcompete fossil fuels in other sectors. And this opens enormous opportunities for new technologies and new companies to benefit from these new opportunities. In this diagram, you see how the fossil share of electricity generation has dropped in the last few years, and it does look quite dramatic. But I use this to illustrate what Winston Churchill once said: you should never trust statistics that you have not manipulated yourself. Because even though this looks very good, if you plot it on the full scale from 0 to 100, you see that this decrease is still small. So while we are on a very positive development and the cost relationships have shifted, if we are going to meet the global climate change challenges and avoid the risk of unmanageable climate change, then we need to speed up this development. So while this new cost relationship opens up commercial opportunities for new companies, it's also very important that you succeed in driving this development and accelerating this development if we are to reach the global climate goals. Thank you.
That was really, really interesting to hear how well the renewables have outcompeted the traditional energy fossil. And you mentioned a few sectors. What sector would you think is there to be next, the next one?
Well, first of all, they have outcompeted conventional fuels in costs, but yet there is a lot to do with the size. The magnitude of the change that remains is enormous. That we should all keep in mind. What we see after the transition of the electricity system, or in parallel even with the transition of the electricity system, is how renewable electricity is used to outcompete fossil fuels in other sectors. And that can be done via batteries, but it can also be done by the use of electricity to produce fuels. And I know some of the companies that have been involved in this cooperation are doing just that. They're using electricity and carbon dioxide to produce methanol or other fuels that can then substitute fossil fuels in other sectors.
And how quick could that development go? What do you think right now?
It depends on how fast people understand the opportunities. And as I said,
do we understand the opportunities in general?
No, not in general. And that's why you can make money in this industry, because those who are quick to understand and see opportunities and do so before most people do it, they can earn money. Those who are too late, they will not be able to earn money, because then there will be so much competition.
And we've seen here that China is one of the countries really, really developing fast. Are they making the most money too?
They're making a lot of money. Those who are fast in China are allowed to make a lot of money, and that's one of the reasons why China is developing very quickly. But again, we should also see that China is one of the countries where the use of fossil fuels is still increasing in total. So they are increasing their carbon dioxide emission, but they're doing it at a much lower pace than they would do if they had not also been able to be world leader in renewables. Looking
in the years to come, what other countries or even European regions would you say or you think will develop more quickly?
We're in a very special situation now because of the economic crisis that have followed from the virus crisis. Because in this period, governments all over the world will invest a lot of money in revitalizing the economy after the decline that came from the coronavirus measures. And decisive for the development in all these countries will be how those investments are directed. And economically, they should be directed towards renewables, because that is a very competitive, profitable sector for investments. And if that is done, we can see very fast development. So having insightful politicians will now be extremely important for the industrial success in the countries.
So what kind of decision would these insightful politicians need to take in order to really, really make the best of this potential?
Well, it's a matter of how to direct the investment they are making. You will have the established large energy companies who will be shouting loudly, and they have all the traditional historic connections to politicians. They will ask for support. They will ask for various schemes that will make it possible for the owners to avoid losing too much money. But you must have politicians who are able to not only satisfy those who shout most, but also look for what is in the long-term interest of the countries, or even the short-term interest of the country, because these investment in renewables, and for that matter also a lot of energy efficiency, is already very profitable today.
What about EU? How are the political discussion and the decisiveness in the EU, on the EU level, coping with this?
Well, there is a lot of discussion about a Green New Deal and a green recovery process. But it's important to distinguish between what is officially said and what's actually done. And I'm interested in what's actually done.
And is enough being done?
Well, we don't know yet.
Something you said, you would never thought it would be possible to have an electric airplane.
Yeah.
And now we have that already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looking, I don't know, a few years to come, something that you today think, that's not possible, that might be possible.
I've learned from my mistakes, so I'm not saying anything is impossible anymore.
What would surprise you?
Well, I don't think I would even try to describe it in that way, because what I would like to do is to spend my time now informing as many as possible about the opportunities that are already here. And I've made mistakes saying that something was impossible, and I'm still very grateful to the young man in the audience when I last time said electric aviation was not possible, and he didn't say anything in public. He came up afterwards with a little note saying, check this website, and I could see a site of a Chinese company already then producing a two-seater electric battery aircraft with a range of 1.5 hours and speed of about 100 kilometers per hour. It was not so impressive, but it was still a proof that this could be done. And I think being able not to say that things are impossible, but to look for what can be done to achieve these decarbonization goals that we have. There are immense opportunities, and you should not always look at solving problems almost like you did before. Radical new solutions can open up for more use of renewables than if you try to just substitute fossil fuels.
Last question, something you would like to be able to tell me if we met, say, in 2 years?
I would like to be able to say that the governments in Europe in particular, and in Northern Europe, have really managed to use the opportunity of the need for economic revitalization to redirect the economy in a cost competitive, low carbon direction. And the opportunity that the governments in the world have today will not come back within a generation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas Kåberger. And as you heard, he stated that there are enormous opportunities out there, but we need to accelerate the rate of transition to the renewables. And we still then need more projects, more innovation, and more collaboration, of course. He also mentioned the EU New Green Deal, and we will hear more about that later on from our second keynote speaker in a while. We will now move on to talk more about the specific project, Northern Connections. And with us here, we will have the project manager for the project. He told me before this conference that when he was a kid, a young boy, he was so impressed by a windmill that was close to his home. First because it was so big, and then because when he understood how important that was for the new energy and the green energy, and since that has been an important part of his life and his work. Very welcome to the conference, Alex Ögård Moreno. How are you?
Yeah, thank you, Åsa. I think the sound from you is a little weak. I know this is only, but I hope you can hear me at least. Well, I'm fine, thanks. Sitting here in. Sorry, Åsa?
I can hear you.
Ah, great.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks. Just finished the political part of this conference earlier this day. So yeah, I'm quite satisfied so far, and thank you all for making a great conference. Even though it's digital, of course, we have to be glad that we can have the conference still, even though we can't be in Gothenburg.
Can you still remember the feeling when you saw this windmill when you were a small guy?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the country in a small town, so I remember when we got the first wind turbines out there. I think, wow, they're so massive and they're not that noisy, and I didn't think that they are ugly. So for me, it was quite impressive, and they just have been growing in size since then. So yeah, I've always been fascinated by wind turbines.
Very, very good. Now we're going to hear more from you about, you putting depth on the figures that we showed in the beginning of the conference about the project. Please.
Yeah, thank you, Åsa. Yeah, well, Northern Connections, what is that? Well, I've tried to map it. As you can see here, this is the physical places that we are located across the North Sea. We are 21 partners divided in between the public sector, which is primarily cities and regions and councils, and also universities. And then we also have clusters working within renewable energy. And our key focus is, of course, to collaborate when it comes to green transition. And we do that by having two focuses. So one focus will be on the clusters and the SMEs, and a second focus will be on the political level. So how can the politicians and cities make the right framework for the SMEs and clusters to work more internationally? And that has been the primary objective and the key focus area in this project the last 3.5 years. So how do we do that now that we are so different? We know that because we are, well, 7 different countries, as you can see on my slide before. But now that we also know that we are different when it comes to culture, when it comes to politics, of course, and also when it comes to the different challenges that we have in our own region or city. So what we did at first was to simply make an analysis and an interview with the different partners in the group, in the project, and identify, well, do we have something in common? Luckily, we did, which is of course our aim to be more green when it comes to production of power and heat. So we brought people together and established trust. I mean, trust is my buzzword and keyword today, because this is a key concept when it comes to working together, especially cross-culturally and cross borders. So after the trust was established, we had the different showcases. So we call them living labs. So the living labs are sort of a conference, but where we have both what we call a challenge owner. It could be a large company, it could also be a city, it could be a region, wanted to buy something from a subcontractor. And we brought the subcontractors directly to the concept or into the event as well, and brought them together in order to do business. We have had 7 so far, as you should be able to see in the next slide as well. Hope you can see the headlines there, just to give you an idea on how different the challenges have been so far. So everything from a large-scale carbon capture and storage and utilization in Edinburgh and Falkirk, onto consumer data monitoring in Denmark, for example. So we have everything in between that. We have district heating, we have urban city development, we have sustainable buildings, we have sustainable construction sites, we have hydrogen, and so on. So this has made, well, it has been interesting to learn how different these challenges are. But the overall headline, of course, is still green transition. So this is just how we what can you say, how we enlighten them, enlighten the different partners, but also, of course, the SMEs, to inform them about, well, this is actually a hands-on challenge that we have here. Don't you want to go with me to Edinburgh, for example, when we try to recruit SMEs for this specific challenge? And we have been quite successful in that. So far, we've had 7 living labs. We'll have 1 more in a couple of weeks. In Denmark, this is not on this list yet, but this would focus on sustainability in hospitals. But so far, in the 7 previous living labs, we've had more than 700 people covering more than 250 SMEs, and we've had more or less 300 matchmaking meetings. And besides that, we've had participants from more than 10 countries. As you remember, the partner group only covers 7 countries, but we managed to attract people from abroad as well. This is, of course, very satisfying for us. So we know that this concept works. So what we are focusing on right now is, of course, very much what we call the transferability of the results. this is how we make sure that the people who have attended our events learn one thing is how they learn how we have organized these sort of events, but also if we could, affect some of the public partners in the project, because we have learned that the public partners often are very, are a very strong driver when it comes to push innovation. Because, for example, in Gothenburg, we had the preschool they wanted to build in a sustainable way, and they also wanted to, not force, but at least make the SMEs that wanted to contribute to this preschool to have a sustainable construction site. So actually forcing innovation through in the SMEs in order to become a part of this procurement process has been very, very interesting. So my final words now will be, when we talk about the next step is, of course, how can we make sure that other partners and also other cities and regions learn from what we have achieved so far? And we have also in a very close dialogue with the Interreg Secretariat about, well, what can we do in order that to make sure that the results that we have gained or achieved so far doesn't just vanish once the project ends in December. So we are very much focusing on that right now, and how to make sure that some of these results are actually absorbed in the future by other partners as well. We've also made a few toolboxes. I don't want to mention too much about that, but that's both on a political level, how the cities can strengthen the opportunities for clusters to work on an international level, but also a toolbox for the clusters that's part of the partner group, where we can make sure that the clusters, of course, in the partner group already knows what it's about, but also clusters external as well. So this is a very strong focus area for us in the next coming couple of months. So that was the final words from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. One question, you mentioned that you were proud. What are you most proud of when it comes to this project?
Well, if I have to be honest, it is that we actually, we had to deal with the fact that we were so different. We are different, but the fact that we actually managed to have such great results, even though we were different, actually surprised me quite a lot. In the beginning of the project, I didn't think that we would be where we are today. And so I think we can be proud of ourselves, all the partners. I mean, really thumbs up from my side. You did very well when it comes to work internationally, even though that we are different.
You also said that the most important now, when the project is coming to an end, you said that for you it's very much about transferring the knowledge and the lessons learned. Can you say something more concrete how you can do that to other parties?
Yeah, well, we actually already started on that. We had a few seminars before the Corona situation, of course, where we invited other North Sea region projects into a workshop, where we informed them about what we obtained so far. And the advantage of that was that the projects that attended that seminar were in the preliminary phase or in the initial phase, so they didn't achieve that much yet. But they could learn of what we have achieved by simply reading our results, and also the do's and don'ts, to get to learn from what can be improved when you are in the beginning of a project period. So that's one thing. But another thing, of course, is to set the overall framework and to make sure that we are able to still work internationally, even though we have the Corona situation.
Are you hoping for a continuation of the project?
Well, a direct continuation is not possible, unfortunately, but we are looking into our Northern Connection 2.0, where we will, of course, take the best parts, the best bits from the current project and of course, develop and evolve them. And we will definitely have a close dialogue with the North Sea Region Secretariat in order to see if we can have a 2.0 program or project maybe next year.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll come back to that at the end of the conference. Thank you very much from Denmark. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now continue to look into 3 different living labs and get more concrete about what has really happened in these 7 events, and we've chosen 3 for you. The first one is from Gothenburg, and we already heard Alex mention it. It's about a fossil-free preschool building. And with me here today in the studio, I'm happy to welcome Anders Hall from the City of Gothenburg and project leader.
Thank you, Åsa.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's exciting to be here, finally.
In the studio?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Can you tell me a bit more about the Living Lab? I mean, we had a conference last year. We met there. I was moderating it. Tell the people and the audience a bit more about the project.
The Project Living Lab last year was actually in the beginning of our design phase for the project. So we had the opportunity to meet around 50 possible suppliers, and we were very happy to see everything from research to established companies that were promoting their already ready-to-use climate-friendly products.
So it was very much of a match day.
It was,
yeah.
And I think we held around 30 interviews during one day. So it was really exciting and hectic day for us.
And how long had you been working with that before that event?
We had preparing for 6 months, both screening possible companies to invite that were interested, and trying to prepare and integrate in our research process before the actual design phase.
And when you think of the conference or the event, one specific memory that you have sort of stayed in your mind?
I think it was actually one of the meetings where we pushed for hemp suppliers in Sweden to get together and meet. And we were actually at the conference 2 weeks ago, where we saw the result that on a grassroots level, we can see new climate neutral building materials come forward.
Wow. So that was one of the results. Other results from that event in the Living Lab that you can tell me?
I think that we were overwhelmed with the results so much that we have not been able to meet all the material suppliers. We had designing and choosing 150 different materials, so we're trying to catch up, and I think that's what we're trying to do from the city of Gothenburg is now to continue work after Northern Connection with establishing and using an improved result in the construction industry from this conference.
And how has the interest been towards that?
As I said, we're trying to catch up. Many of the suppliers are now showing what progress they have made since last year. So we're trying to integrate that in our other project as well within the city of Gothenburg, and especially for our preschools and schools.
We have a slide here where we can see the reduced climate impact. So if you could just tell us a little bit what we see here.
What we see here is the result from the first screening of the project, where we actually were able to show that without using any research technology material, but just the things that are on the market today, we were able to reduce the climate impact by 70%.
That's impressive.
So that was beyond our expectations in this case.
And if you look from now on in the future, can you say something more? What will happen from now?
We actually started our production last week, so that's very exciting that the test bed for one of the living labs is now under production. In parallel with this, we are actually in contact with 4 of the suppliers to be integrated directly in the next phases for Hoppet. So it's not over for us for the test bed, but we're also looking for the roadmap ahead, how we can become climate neutral by 2030 and with a half reduction by 2025.
So when do you think we will have preschool like this, fossil-free?
It's a matter of definition, we've seen.
You can choose.
We can choose, I can explain. We have really a bit harder demands on this preschool Hoppet. We're actually not counting the carbon that is bound in the wood. So the 70% is just reduced from the other ones.
Okay.
If we count that in we are actually neutral by now. So it seems that we will be able to reach our goal in the first preschool.
And if you look at what you think or what you would like to for this project to mean for the other projects and the continuous work within, like the city of Gothenburg where you work.
I think it's important to see that we've actually seen companies move from Belgium to Sweden just because of the result of this project. And I hope that challenging maybe the Lord Mayor of Gothenburg to say that I think that we can establish a business center for a climate-friendly construction in Gothenburg, both with knowledge and materials. So I hope this will be a continuation.
I saw that you talked to her before we started.
I did.
She said yes, of course. Okay, and one learning from this, because I know that this kind of Living Lab, the projects are a bit different from how you worked before. One learning that you think is important to keep in mind and take with you for other projects?
I think it's important to know that you can exceed your expectations, but you can also be overwhelmed in trying to sort between what to push for. Because there are a lot of good suppliers, smaller suppliers, so we try to pick and integrate as many as possible, but we're not able to integrate everyone in one project. So we need to keep the momentum up for trying to find the climate neutral construction industry.
That's important to say, of course. So I asked Alex before, the last speaker, about what he was most proud of. So you will get the same question.
I'm actually proud of the teamwork that we have made from the Living Lab through the design team for Hoppet, through the courage from the Lord Mayor and the political representatives that actually put the request for this project in place in 2017. And by 2021, we will see the results when the kids move into the preschool.
That will be a fantastic day.
Thank you. Yeah, it will.
Thank you very much, Anders, and good luck with the continuation of the project and Hoppet.
Thank you very much, Åsa.
Thank you. We are now going to our next Living Lab, and we are going to Holland. And I will introduce a person that after 25 years of working in the world's largest waste-to-energy plant took the step and started in a new foundation where innovators and different actors in a cluster meet to stimulate new sustainable solutions. Please welcome Peter Simons, Director in Vestas. How?
Thank you, Åsa.
How are you,
Yes,
Peter?
Thank you. Yes, I'm fine. Fine. Working from home in the Netherlands.
So,
yeah.
what is
looking forward to this.
What is the most exciting thing about your new role in this foundation in Vestas?
Yes, it's totally different than what I have done before. You mentioned it already. I was working as a strategy manager for 25 years at a waste-to-energy plant in Amsterdam. And then especially with strategy, also working on innovation and especially on the energy transition. What I saw is that there was a need of a new type of energy. We were also experimenting with it with waste, but you could really feel it was out of scope for a normal waste company. And at some point, this opportunity came up. They were looking for a director for this very innovative foundation. And then I said, okay, why not? And let's try how far we can bring this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm now doing this for 2 years. So.
Okay, thank you. And we will now hear more about what you have done in those 2 years. And it's very much about how the necessary technology can be demonstrated in real world, in real projects, and helping entrepreneurs to successfully bring their ideas and innovation to the market. So let's hear more about that.
Yes, I will tell you. Yes. Yeah, let's start with Investa in Alkmaar. What it is, its intention. Investa in Alkmaar, that is an expert center. An expert center that's dealing with technology development, innovation on renewable molecules. It's an area also which is not really known. At this point, we know a lot about electrons, renewable energy from wind and solar and other systems, but also to reach the climate ambitions of the Netherlands, there was already recognized that to reach these targets, you need also renewable options for example, for transport, for the chemical industry, but also as a replacement for fossil gas. So Investa brought together a lot of companies, but also knowledge institutions, and the government is well connected to our system, to our organization. What are we dealing with? We call it, we are going from biomass to products, and we do that by a very old technology, but it's a chemical transformation from biomass. And when we talk about biomass, we also talk about waste streams into molecules. And there you need some technology for that. And most known technology for that is digestion of biomass. But what we are also demonstrating is the gasification technology and biorefinery technologies, and also turning renewable electricity into hydrogen is in the scope of Investa. We had also a matchmaking event last year in Alkmaar, where we go in depth in what we are doing at what we are doing at Investa. Just to give a little update on the progress of Investa, we are starting up. What I said, I started in 2018 within Investa. It was already started in 2016. And what you can see is that in general, the development was a little bit slow. And that was also in line what was more or less recognized earlier, also by the national government, and they decided to speed up the process. And therefore, I'm one of the examples. I was put there as a director to speed up this process. And what we can see from now is that we are really getting up to speed. And also end of this year, of this coming months, we will really start the activities in Alkmaar. So we're going from paper to the real life. And the first projects are starting, and also Investa is starting to build. So that is looking very promising. What I also want to mention also from a national level, if you look at the policy, that much more and more this policy is directed to renewable molecules. So that helps us a lot. So there's a lot of attention, and you can also see in the Netherlands that there are also some financing structures changed to help these projects. But also, again, still mentioned, there is a lot to do, a lot of innovation is necessary. So also from the governments, we are pushed to speed up. So that's a very good signal. So if we take a look at what projects are we talking about, what is Investa then doing? What our main goal is to facilitate more or less all these projects as much as possible. We do that by offering all kinds of utilities, working environment, location, but also help them with financing and getting all the permits and that sort of things. That's our role from Investa, and the projects itself, they have the task to develop their technology. You see some projects, but I can mention a little bit about it. But we are talking about projects that are producing from biomass hydrogen, and that is then put in a petrol station. We are talking about algae projects. We are talking about a big gasification project to produce Also green gas from waste streams. So yeah, a big mixture of all kinds of projects. In total, we are now working with more or less 10 projects who are developing. But also we are involved with R&D programs, also in development projects, together with also international parties. And yeah, so that is also very important. I want to come back to that in my last slide, but that's where we seek really the collaboration with other countries and other companies, organizations in Europe. So what I mentioned, we will start our building activities coming months. We do that in parallel with the projects which are starting up. And we expect that the first projects will be online from next year, summer next year. So that's where we are working now at this moment. And yeah, if I look further into what are we going to do, how are we going to look into the future, that's where we are expanding our facilities. We are also working on a large hydrogen hub. We're also looking at CCU, capture and usage of carbon. And of course, also we are going to connect each project to each other by exchanging heat, for example. What we're doing, we are increasing the number of demo projects. So everybody is welcome to have a discussion with us. And also what is very important in this one is that we also like to get involved with a lot of companies, not only in the Netherlands, but also in other countries. And that's why we are very happy that we also have this opportunity to speak here. I think the Northern Connection project is very good to also to help expanding this network. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. One question we heard before in the other Living Labs and from Alex that trust in the collaboration between different stakeholders is really, really important. How can you describe the collaboration between your different stakeholders?
Yes, then it's very good to start with, again, with who we are. I think that is that's very important. You have to bring all these people and organizations together to get a success. Investa is already, the founding fathers of Investa are TNO. TNO is the large research and development institute in the Netherlands. It is a company in Alkmaar, an oil and gas company called TAQA, and a development company. And Investa is funded by the national and local governments. So, in a sense, all these organizations with all these different goals are already coming together within Investa. But in the end, they all have the same direction. To accelerate this technology. So yeah, that's I think that's the key. And trust starts with getting to know each other and talk to each other. And that is, I think, key for successful innovation.
Thank you very much. To getting to know each other and talking about who are we and have the same goals are some of the success factors. Last question, yes. Very short. What would you like this project to mean for your region or even for your country?
Yeah, this is, as we call it, what we said is this is a very important project. So if the demonstration of our activities is successful, then this technology will be used and scaled up, not only for the Dutch goals, but also for there are a lot of international companies already involved within Investa. They also want to bring this technology to other countries to help, help also to reach their how do you call that? Sorry, climate ambition.
Okay.
So yeah, and also what I hope, and that's really my last sentence. What I learned about this project and what I found very good in this project is that you get to know each other, and I hope that it will not stay within this project only, but also that we, after this project, know how to find each other. Our door is always open, and everybody is welcome for a cup of coffee in the Netherlands.
Okay, thank you. It was good to know you a bit, Peter. And as he said, you're always welcome to visit in Holland. So with that said, it's time to take a break. And you will see a clock ticking down, so you can see when you are to be back. In the break, you will see a few films from the Living Labs, and we also have one question for you. And that is really, really exciting question, I think. It's about what is your dream Living Lab? If you could dream and wish, what kind of project, what kind of Living Lab would you like to see? See you in a while.
And Northern Connections is a project with 22 partners all around the North Sea region, and is focused on the international chances of SMEs.
Yeah, I met a lot of interesting people from different branches. Some of the contacts I think will be quite interesting to follow up on.
In the context of Northern Connections, a Living Lab is about bringing together companies who can provide solutions with innovation challenge owners who are looking for companies for these solutions. And that is something we have tried to facilitate and organize by ways of this event.
So today's meeting was very interesting for me. I met very interesting people from science, from the industry, people who are just new in the industry, more experienced in the industry, people who come from maybe the petrochemical industry and into developing hydrogen infrastructure, which was very interesting to me because these will be, let's say, the game-changing parties in future. So I think that was a very successful day for me.
So we identify these Living Lab cases which have concrete innovation challenges and trying to find within the networks around the North Sea companies who might be able to provide solutions for those Living Labs. And that's the core thing that we try to achieve here.
Today we had like 130 participants, and there were around 100 matchmaking meetings. Now we have to see what the follow-up is going to be.
The event was very useful, yeah, thanks. It's a great opportunity for solution providers like us, H2 Tech, to get in front of people who've got real projects.
We are organizing Living Lab event with Living Lab owners, challengers that are searching for new technologies, and we bring them in from other countries, from the North Sea region countries, Norway, Denmark, Sweden.
We're one of the Living Labs, and we are here exactly around the smart mobility. So we have some mobility challenges on our side. We are in Antwerp, very near to the city of Antwerp. There are a lot of challenges around mobility, and we hope to find solutions here.
Wij zijn met Green Park ook een Living Lab. En wij trachten in Zellik een researchpark om te bouwen van oude technologieën fuel naar nieuwe warmtenetten en elektrische netten.
What is very nice and very good on this is that we have the possibility to have one-on-one meetings with suppliers.
We do have a lot of experience in Flanders, but we see that there is also a lot of experience in other regions, and learning from each other is key in order to avoid to make the same mistakes as other regions have done.
District heating is something that you will have worked with a long time in Sweden. The ambition for Gothenburg, for example, is within 2025 you will not use any natural gas or fossil oil in the district heating system at all.
I think the automation is a big trend, so autonomous driving, but not only autonomous driving, probably also autonomous logistics, but also autonomous shipping. So yes, for autonomous driving, the Living Lab will be very interesting.
I've been here talking about City of Oslo taking the lead in the green shift, and also how we have to work together, because even if Oslo managed to get their targets, that doesn't matter if the rest of the world don't. So we're here to share and to learn.
We have a common challenge: to create a more sustainable future together, with less environmental and climate impact, and still have a green growth.
The Northern Connection Living Lab is vital for us to find suppliers outside our normal channels to be able to switch to the fossil-free construction. Hoppet is the starting point for the switch to fossil-free construction. That is the demand for the city until 2030.
And that's why we bring people and companies from Northern Europe to come to Gothenburg to create and innovate and find each other for collaborations.
We're here today to meet potential projects, potential waste companies, so for the supply of material and for the end customer, to see what we can do and really scale our company internationally. The cement industry, concrete, is something we really want to remove. If it was a country, it'd be the third biggest emitter on the planet.
We were happy to see that a lot of the suppliers are already ready to help us improve the climate footprints of our buildings and the maintenance of the buildings in the city of Gothenburg.
And that is actually what Northern Connection is about: to create and co-create together for a sustainable future.
To have these collaborations and to come from Scotland that has a very progressive environmental policy, and to see that that's also happening in Scandinavia is really fantastic. To find like-minded people, like-minded customers and potential partners. It's fantastic.
If you are trying to build something for the next 50 to 100 years, as we are doing, we should be able to influence on their environments in the future as well. That is why this is very important.
The biggest barrier today, getting to move the world forward, is that people don't meet. Northern Connection is really important to make new friends as a start of great cooperations to make Oslo a greener city than it is today.
Well, when it comes to bringing people together and companies together from different countries, they automatically generate new ideas because they have the same challenge. So if you're working within the renewable energy sector or thinking about green growth, they would also meet each other, get to know each other, and they might do collaboration afterwards. And that's what Northern Connections is all about.
welcome back. It's great to see all your suggestions for dream living labs. I just mentioned a few here. Flying taxis, island cooperation between different islands on local products and sustainable production, blockchain, clusters on natural fibers. And like somebody said, it's not the theme that is important, it's more that you really get to know each other and work together towards the same goal. All of these suggestions will be in your documentation after the program here today, which will be sent out tomorrow. We have one more living lab to talk about, and you might have noticed that there was a film from Norway, from Oslo, about one of the living labs. And I'm not happy to welcome the project leader, Paul Samuelsen, from the Øken Centrum in Oslo, one of the most special and I heard ambitious projects in Norway when it comes to transformation and sustainability in the urban development. How are you?
Thank you, I'm very fine. Thank you. I'm looking forward to be here today and give a short update on our Living Lab project from Oslo and Norway.
We'll be doing that now. I'm really excited to hear about this exciting program. So please, Paul.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Paul Samuelsen. I'm a project manager for Øken Centrum, one of the largest city development projects in Oslo. The project is owned by two owners, the Sten & Strøm, the shopping center player, for the Scandinavian shopping center player, and Storebrand, the largest pension fund in Norway. The location of the plots were bought back in 2006, and the location is based on a strategy in Oslo that this northeast part of Oslo is the place where the growth will take place the next years, meaning that a location like this is a future-oriented location. And the plan originally was to construct the largest shopping center in Oslo. This was at the time where shopping centers were growing, and we thought this was the best idea. But from the beginning of our Northern Connection participation and until today, the last 2 years, we have made major changes in the project. And the major changes are based on that we wanted to offer something else to the city, and it's based on the sustainable changes that has been the recent years, and that we wanted more people to work and live at our plot with this good location on a metro station centrally in Oslo. Which tools we are using to control this project in a sustainable way is that we are committed to a BREEAM Communities certification. And a BREEAM tool is a tool that gives us the opportunity to identify all the critical aspects of sustainability, which we then include in the daily planning with our engineers and architects. These tools can, for example, give us the answers regarding the capacity of heating, cooling, bike lanes, and a lot of other aspects. And it's also linked into the international development market. So it's tested in many countries. One of the things that a change of the project made us capable of was to integrate more cultural heritage than we had in the previous project. Since we are not constructing anymore a large shopping center, we can have a city development with more roads, more car-free roads, more plazas and meeting places. We're also able to keep some of the historical buildings that are on the site today that we were not planning for in the previous project. We will also reopen 2 historical rivers that are on site today into a tunnel. And this will give you a blue-green structure that can even include the fish in the future. We will plant new trees. The name Åkern is based on oak, meaning that we can replant the history of Åkern with the oak trees in the project. To plan all this, we are of course using the best architects and engineers that we are able to find. We are using international advisors and local. And in addition, we are basing the planning on local knowledge. So we started the planning by asking the people living nearby if they wanted to be a part of the city development in their neighborhood. And we received 1,300 electronically respondents to a website we created in order to tell us what is good about the location today, what is bad, what do you miss, what do you want your future neighborhood to look like. And with all this inspiration, we got answers from kids and adults and the parents and all kind of people in which direction to go. And this made the planning even easier, though of course more complicated with more players involved. Last but not least, I'd just like to wrap up, say that this plan has now been worked on for close to 2 years. And we are working very closely with the municipality of Oslo, which we are playing along with all the time. So we are got a lot of good inputs that are making us able to come through with this good and great plan. So I would like to thank you and the cooperation that Northern Connection has brought us into as well.
Thank you, Paul. One question. What would you say that the concept of Living Lab has meant for your project?
The Living Lab has made us able to see pain points that we have not in Norway as of these days. For example, we are not in a lack of water in Norway with all the rivers, but by this Living Lab, we know that fresh water is a resource we have to really take care of in the future as well, also in Norway. So, for example, grey water, black water, reuse of water are phrases we are not used to in our planning, and something we will definitely keep up with in the future as well.
Thank you. One more question for you. If you could dream, you're able to dream right now, what would you really want to develop if you could choose totally free?
If I could choose from anything,
yes.
I will. Norway had a vote a couple of years ago whether they should apply for the Olympic Games or not. I think we found it too expensive, but maybe with a Northern Connection cooperation, we can have a great North European Olympic Games together. That would be a great dream.
Wow, I would really want to help out if that goes through. Thank you very much, Paul, from Norway and Oslo. We have one more keynote speaker here in the studio, and he is the Vice President for Innovation at Chalmers University of Technology. He is also responsible for the Chalmers Innovation Ecosystem. He is a board member of the European Innovation Council at the European Commission, and is also an advisor to the Swedish government. What I find specifically interesting, he's a great fan of pan-European collaboration, and now he will give a presentation on the new call within the EU, the Green Deal. Please welcome Fredrik Hörstedt.
Thanks a lot, Åsa, and thank you all in the audience for listening in. Great to be here talking about the Northern Connections partnership, hopefully Northern Connection partnership in the future. So what I have prepared is a bit of a European Commission perspective currently, what is going on inside the Commission, what's cooking, and what this might mean for the Northern Connections partnership ahead. And if we just start with the basics, we start with Horizon Europe. This is the warmly anticipated, intensively discussed research and innovation program of the European Commission. Perhaps you have followed the debate. It was originally proposed by the European Parliament to be a 120 billion euro program for the period 2021 to 2027. The budget was later cut to around 85 to 90 billion euros during the MFF multi-financial framework negotiations. This was just prior to Christmas 2019. And when the heads of European Union states negotiated the EU budget in its entirety during summer now in July, it had further cuts down to around 75 billion euros. Negotiations are still ongoing. It's not the European Council that decides on the budget and decides on the future of Horizon Europe. It's the European Parliament. So we have negotiations to come. We have lobbying efforts on their way this autumn, and it will be really exciting to see what the final budget will look like. However, it's still probably the most powerful research and innovation program in the world. It's still a valuable resource for pan-European collaboration like the one we have in the Northern Connections partnership. And as you see in the slide here, it consists of 3 pillars, the science pillar, the challenge-driven pillar, and the innovation pillar. The body where I'm in the board is the European Innovation Council to the right in this slide, and I'm also on the board of directors of one of the initiatives also in the innovation pillar. It says European Institute of Technology. We will look a bit into that in this presentation. So zooming in on the innovation pillar, where I work quite a lot, I just scribble down what the contents of that pillar is really. And here are 2 concepts or acronyms, EIT and EIC. They are pockets of resources of the actors that are inside the Northern Connections partnership currently, I would say. We have EIT, starting with that. It has been run since 2010, 10 years down the road currently. It's $1 billion in Horizon Europe proposed for 3 billion euros. And what we have here is initiative that drives innovation across Europe. It drives partnership between actors in all sectors, public sectors, private enterprises, RTOs, research technology organizations that is, and academia. And it's integrating and creating ecosystems like the one we have in the partnership. And the core of EIT is really the challenge-driven aspect and the cross-sectorial collaboration. So that's what we have. I will just briefly look at the mechanisms of the EIT in the next slide. But then we also have the EIC, and that's a kind of new kid on the block on Horizon Europe. It's been piloted for 2 years now. It will run live in Horizon Europe. And what the EIC does is 2 things really. It supports innovative researchers that conduct groundbreaking research that can pave the way for new disruptive technologies. That's one thing. The other, it's called a Pathfinder program, that is. The other thing that EIC does is that it supports SMEs, startups and scale-ups that has business models that can disrupt the industry vertical or business vertical where they are acting. So that's what we do. We support innovative researchers and entrepreneurs. That's basically it. And if you look at the tools, if Pathfinders and accelerators are the tools of the EIC, the tools of the EIT are the KICs, knowledge and innovation communities. Typically there are around 150 to 200 actors in each one of the KICs that you see here. They are thematically organized, so they deal with climate, they deal with digitalization, food, health, energy, etc. And what we have here is really networks of actors that are challenge-driven, working together, that was not formed prior to the KICS. So this is a kind of network expansion tool where Europe tries to reduce the massive fragmentation we have. There's a lot of borders in Europe, unfortunately, not only between societal sectors, but also between regions, countries, cultures, what have you. And the value for Europe is really to work more strongly together. That's why I'm a big fan of pan-European collaboration. And the KIC uses public funds. They make calls for proposals, for projects, for programs, for networks, huge resources to tap into for any actor network that is pan-European, I would say. And then on the next slide, I have some reference material for you. We will not go into details right now, but here is a further comparison, what differs and what is similar between EIT and EIC. I will skip that and move to the next slide. And I think here it gets really interesting. This is quite fresh material. It was proposed, the EU budget for 2021 to 27 was proposed in May. It was negotiated in July, and it will be decided by the European Parliament later on this year. It's called the Recovery Plan for Europe. It's now being molded in the negotiations, and the strategy on how to carry through this recovery plan is currently unveiling. And one instrument is this. It's a part of the recovery plan's strategy, if you like. When we focus on research and innovation stimulus in the European Union, it's the Green Deal that will be the overarching theme. We will have some more important themes as well. Digitalization is one, for instance. And then we have missions like carbon neutral cities. But the main vehicle for collaboration and for research and innovation is really the Green Deal broad topic. And as you see in this slide, there are some very interesting activities coming up soon. You read it right. We will launch a call worth close to 1 billion euros. I can say that again, 1 billion euros in one call. And I think that holds a lot of promises for the Northern Connections Partnership. If you look at some details going into the overview, you see a lot of text here, but the main message is really that we have 8, they call it work streams, but it's really thematic areas. I will show you them in just a minute. And then there are 3 horizontal areas. It's different type of output, you can put it that way. They are looking for knowledge, empowerment, and cooperation. And then you see tangible results expected in a short time frame and emphasis on impact. So this is societal impact, economic impact, that is really the key KPI measure areas of this call. Going further into detail, here are the thematic areas. 8 of them, possibly with relevance to Northern Connections Partnership. I mean, probably and hopefully, I would perhaps say. And you also have the horizontal areas. So what they are looking for is really a matrix between themes and types of outputs. That's how to allocate these 1 billion euros for the best of Europe. Timeline-wise, you can see that this call has been prepared with the first openly shared material in beginning of summer, in June. And notably, the call opens in mid-September. So this is something to look out for in the next week, couple of weeks. The call is opened, and then we have until January next year to respond to it. So this is really an autumn where we will see a lot of application being written and a lot of consortia being formed. There is a wealth of information on this outside, just listed the most important sources. Just remind you that you have national contact points in each EU country and also in Norway. That's a Google exercise for you to find out who these NCPs are, as they call. They can give you great support. And I also would like to make a certain push for an event. It's a pan-European event, typically held in Brussels. It's called Research and Innovation Days, the R&I Days. And as you see, this is the schedule for 22nd of September. And there is a Green Deal topic in the morning of September 22nd. I will be there. Hopefully, I will meet some of you. This is typically where you would like to discuss and meet with other organizations that are interested in going for this deal. And just a reminder for those Swedes out there who hasn't kind of snapped that there is an actual information meeting tomorrow. There's a web conference hosted by Vinnova, funding agency, on this particular call. So I think it's a great vehicle that potentially can carry the Northern Connections partnership forward, and I think the timing is excellent. So thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Fredrik. I also want to say that figure, 1 billion euros.
Yes, hard to grasp. Huh?
Yeah. You could do a lot of things with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Will it be crucial to what is coming? How important is it, this new Green Deal?
I would say it's very important because what we see is a kind of trickle-down effect. What is being done at the Commission level is slowly but being imitated by the member states. So if we have the European Commission investing a lot in green investments of various type, then we see that member states will follow.
You said to me before that you believe that Europe is acting or will act as a conscience of the world and taking the lead when it comes to build this society that is really built on sustainability. How well are we coping, would you say?
I think that we see in post-corona situation currently that the US has been really ahead of us. They have launched a series of stimulus programs. The European Commission has launched one. It's a significant one. But in terms of volume, we are not coping very well, I would say. The US is the leader in that sense. But if you take a qualitative measure into account, what are they doing with the investments, then I would say we are good off because we have the Green Deal focus, we have sustainability transition that we are targeting. And that type of stimulus, that quality is not in the US policy. So in that sense, we're uniquely positioned, I would say. Small but elegant.
Small but elegant. I mean, that's not too bad. Of course, you have with your experience, you have a good overview of different regions, and you already mentioned the States. Could you give just a short answer to what are the different approaches from, like, say, the States, you say China and Europe?
I would say there are quite big differences, both in terms of what you would like to achieve, and also big differences in how you go about achieving these goals. If we look at the US community, for instance, it's very noticeable that they have established these digital meta consumer platforms, like the FANG companies, that is Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, etc. And if you think about what value they actually provide, it's well, you can say that they help you to buy goods faster, products get cheaper, and you get a faster delivery. And you can also share a cappuccino picture with all your friends. And in relation to the challenges ahead, with the pandemic spreading, with the world is heating up, with the huge discrepancy between rich and poor, well, you might wonder if those are the relevant problems to solve in the world. So that's a big difference, I would say. China is better off. They have a stronger climate bio-orientation, biodiversity prevention, for instance. And the reason is that they waste their kind of local environment so bad that it's not hospitable anymore to human beings. So they have to do it.
They have to. Mm.
But when they go about that, they are not fully respectful for human rights. So I would say they solve the relevant problems, but they don't do it in responsible ways. And I think for Europe, we can take the best out of these two communities, be very rich of conscience. We can be the world's conscience, solving the relevant problems in in the appropriate ways. I would say that's the European way.
Big task for Europe there. I will ask you to stay on for the concluding conversation. So please take a seat. And we're going to look at, I told you before that we had a political conversation, discussion here this morning with politicians from 6 different countries. And we're going to look at a small film, a small clip from what they discussed. And then we're going to comment that and conclude this conference.
Is it a way of working to exchange ideas how to conduct public procurement to stress the change and the shift towards a greener agenda?
Certainly, most certainly, and I would say that there's a lot of traps you can fall in when you are doing public procurement, because sometimes you can get very, very expensive green procurements and so on. But if you're clever, you could do it in a way where you can buy at almost the same price as you do today. It's maybe cheaper to use, and then also you have all the environmental effects.
So that was a clip from this political discussion this morning. I welcome Maria Strömberg back, and you were the moderator of this part of the conference.
Yes, I had the honor.
Can you tell us just a few words on what was important in that discussion?
Well, first of all, I must say it was a lot of energy and a lot of insightful politicians that all agreed on that we need to continue to cooperate. It's a lot of strength in cooperating across borders, so they all agreed on that. And the clip just showed how all the views of the mayor in Aalborg. We were about over 20 people participating in that roundtable discussion. But to summarize, well, we said, well, we need to, even though the Northern Connection project is soon over, we need to find, for real, times to meet on a political level, on an administrative level. So we need to continue because, and you heard the mayor in Aalborg saying that we could work together when it comes to public procurements. That's a very powerful tool for cities and regions, actually to stress a green shift. So, and encourage companies to be part of that shift. So, of course, we discussed how can we learn from each other, because we can't really innovate in each city all the time. We could learn a lot from each other, but we need to find the platforms in doing so.
Mm. We saw that in the audience, the question that we put up for the audience was the learning from each other was the biggest, most important drivers for innovation.
Yes, I agree to that. And of course also that what we have managed in this project is to create trust between all the different actors. We have heard it has been said several times, and it is for real. You can really almost touch on that we have a high level of trust, even though we are very different. Initially, we thought we were very much alike. Then we are not. And then we created this high level of trust. And I think it's important, also on a political level, that we sometimes are competing, but we also, most of the times, could cooperate, especially when it comes to creating bigger markets.
So with what feeling did you leave this political meeting this morning?
With a hopefulness that we can actually manage to do this. And we will try to cooperate in making the Green Deal in Europe to become real. So that was the feeling.
Very good. I would like you to comment openly what you heard Maria say. How important do you think this meeting was?
I think it's really important, and I think we have come to a point in Europe where we must reduce fragmentation and work more strongly together. The potential was initially to build strong practices locally, but now we have a lot of good assets out there, and I think the next lever, the next potential, is really to engage in a more thorough exchange, a deeper exchange, where we can learn from each other and gain benefits from our experiences and knowledges, but also on the work practices that we have developed. So that's, I would say, the next step.
I think looking back to what Thomas Kåberg says is very much not only what you talk about, is what you do. And here you have the link from the political agenda to this Living Labs, which is a success factor, I suppose.
Definitely.
In what areas would you say that, I mean, you already mentioned some of them, but you really see that there we will need the politicians to have more of collaboration or join forces, or however you put it?
But I think, as I mentioned, the public procurement as a tool, I think we need to know more about how to use that tool in the cities and regions, but because it is very powerful. We need to be very clear when we describe the tool for the companies. Large companies, they have the knowledge and they have the experience in taking part, but also to create know-how amongst the SMEs, how to participate in public procurement. So we need to raise their skills in order to be part of that development. I think that's a really powerful tool. So the politicians can take their part in letting us work like that, and also participate in meetings where we fertilize or where we do the cross-border knowledge enlightenment, if I can say so. So I think it's we're onto something really important there.
Do you have another area that you would like to mention apart from procurement?
Well, I'm taking really the same standpoint as Maria, looking for economic development. But I also see that what is sometimes hindering economic development, coupled with strong societal impact, is consumer behavior.
Yeah.
And I think that's a type of mechanism, it's a type of tool, if you like, that is very, very powerful when it's widely used. We saw the Fridays for Future movement, for instance, last year. It really helps to create awareness of and consciousness about climate issues, global warming issues. And if we can have that coupled with a strong business development and business catalyst among industry verticals, I think it's a beautiful area where which is very difficult, because the smaller you are, the more difficult it is to get a stronger movement. But if you are multiple cities, if you are in Oslo or Gothenburg or Copenhagen or Hamburg or any other place within a region, and that you feel that you are part of a greater movement, then it's a bigger momentum. So I see that as an area, how to use citizen engagement in order to drive massive business development efforts in various ways.
And if you combine those two, the procurement and the consumer behavior, of course you have a really strong force. Yeah. One challenging question, we're talking about Europe. I mean, we talk a lot and we see a lot of polarization and countries going in totally other direction than sustainability. Is it possible to, really on the EU level, to make all countries go in this direction that we talk about here?
Well, if I may start, well, I think as in all leadership, you should put a lot of focus on the actors that would like to drive the change. After some time, the followers will come. And I think that applies also on a larger scale, honestly. So I think the Green Deal, they have a good part of it now when they want to choose 100 cities that would like to go a little bit more ahead of the rest and show the way that it is possible. And I'm really proud of that Gothenburg have decided to try to become one of the 100 cities. And I think that will be a strong force really for change, because, well, a lot of cities will apply, some will be chosen, hopefully Gothenburg, together with some of the cities in the Northern Connection. And we talked about that in the morning during the political roundtable as well, that imagine if we refer to each other and say, well, hey, it will only be possible since we also cooperate with the other cities and regions within the Northern Connection. That's how we will work to become successful. So I think that's a really strong tool. And sooner or later, the others...
They will come.
They will come.
Yeah, we decide that here now. I would like to, before we end, talk a bit about a possible continuation of the Nordic connections. I mean, we have the Green Deal, and Alex mentioned, the project leader mentioned that, of course, he hoped for some kind of continuation. Before I let you comment that, we have a public question to the audience. And the question is, which area do you think is the most important for Northern Connections actors to collaborate on in the future? So answer the question, and I will start to ask you to comment on what could you foresee or wish for when it comes to continuation or another project.
But I think Fredrik, he said it before, that we could work a little bit harder on including the citizens in the cities and regions, to also involve them in a larger scale. I think that's crucial for speeding up the scaling up.
So more involvement.
Yes, more involvement.
Citizens.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely, I couldn't said it myself. But I mean, you can also add some, I think, content topical areas that you would expect related to energy supply, coupled with digitalization, smart renewable energy. That would be a kind of systemic area, I would say. If you add additional partners to that, then you can create stronger value, and you can have a more competitive bid for the call for proposals. So that would be, I think, one area with great public benefits for the cities involved and the municipalities, and it's also a strong energy in the area of the partnership.
Let's see, we have a screen behind us here to see if we have some suggestion from the audience. Just feel free to comment anything you see on the screen here.
Well, I must start with sustainable transports, and not only sustainable transports in a very broad perspective, but the interaction, the possibilities to transport ourselves between our cities and regions in the Northern Connection, that I think is crucial to fertilize the competence and the know-how between the people. So sustainable transportation of knowledge would be great.
Thank you. Fredrik, one comment from you.
Now, I'm just, the thing that strikes me when we look at these topics is that we are in a situation now where we can have a good investment yield in many of these areas compared to just some 4 or 5 years ago. So I think they are all beautiful and relevant headlines to start with. And to my mind, this creativity and these suggestions is a really good foundation to develop further as you go for, or the partnership goes for, detailed proposals for how to carry forward.
That's something you can bring with you to all your boards on the European Union level. Okay, we are going to conclude. We have just a few more minutes. Last time I met you on stage was the Living Lab in Gothenburg, Hoppet, the preschool, and we had a discussion and we did a really fun thing.
Yes.
All audience in that, we were a physical conference, jumped for the future. They made a jump for the future because that would manifest their hope for good solutions to come. So my last question to you, and we're going to see on the screen that picture from the last conference while you answer the question. What gives you hope right now for us on this overall level to really find the good solutions when it comes to sustainable society?
Well, I would say it gives me hope to recognize that there's a lot of things in place now. I mean, we have the science, we have the technology, we have the investments there, we have the public investments. That was not the case just some years ago. And then we have the broad movement among citizens that we can use as a kind of tidal wave almost. And what would give me even more hope is to have more guts with the politicians, to have politicians look further ahead than the next election. Then we could add some really strong stimulus also at the member state level in the European Union, for instance. That would contribute even more.
More guts for the politicians.
More guts for
what I heard from you, they had some guts this morning.
Well, that's my impression, definitely.
Yeah.
And to add on what Fredrik is saying, I would also like to say that what we also have in place now is cooperation on another level, on a higher level, both locally, regionally, and between the countries. And we have set the targets and the common agenda in Europe, and that gives me hope.
Very good. It's time to conclude, actually, this conference. Maria, what do you want to say?
Well, I think it has been a great day, starting with the morning and this final conference in the studio. Of course, I wish that you all had been here, but I must say thank you to you, Åsa, for really excellent moderating, and to the whole team in the studio that you can't see that made this possible, for all the speakers with so much important messages, and for all the people that took part in this conference, because now is your time for action, and let's do it together.
Thank you very much. So it's time to conclude. Tomorrow you will all receive an email with documentation and a report of this fantastic project. From me to you, I wish you good luck and superpower in your important task to keep innovate and keep collaborate. Thank you very much.